Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Just a reminder of the stakes here. To my mind, the Senate races are looking pretty good for Republicans. Republicans going to take Joe Manchin's seat in West Virginia. Tim Sheehy in Montana looks like he is leading John Tester, the Democratic incumbent, there pretty handily. And so, Kim, there's a couple of scenarios here then. The first is if you assume a Republican Senate and Trump takes the White House, then who controls the House is the decider between whether we have divided government and stalemate, or whether we have a real opportunity for Republicans to pass some kind of agenda, some of that probably driven by President Trump, some of that probably driven by Republican lawmakers' own priorities. And by the way, in that case, the margin also matters, because although Speaker Mike Johnson has made it past the year mark holding the gavel after taking over from Kevin McCarthy, the more Republicans have on their padding if they win the House, the more stability, it seems to me, whoever the speaker ends up being, if it's Mike Johnson again, has to require the tough votes to keep the doors open, the lights on, the debt limit raised, and get business done.
Well, you just mentioned a really fascinating name, Mike Johnson, because his job might depend on the outcome of this election, regardless of whether he's speaker or not. I think a lot of people are looking at him. He, to his credit, in a very short period of time, not only took on the mantle of all the duties required of a speaker, and I think faced a very steep and quick and successful early learning curve in that direction. But he also had to do the thing that speakers, House party leaders are expected to do on both sides, which is to fundraise. He has gotten some pretty high marks for that, got his network up and running, and has been delivering some very big fundraising checks for those members out there now trying to hold their seats or win new seats. You're right. Obviously, the biggest question will be the division of power between the chambers and the White House. But it's notable, I do not see either side here coming out of this race with a very big majority, whoever wins. I mean, I think Republicans or Democrats would probably be lucky if the number that they got for victory was in the double digits. But it is also true, as you note, that every number counts. I'm sure that Republicans definitely would like to move on from a situation where even 2 or 3 members who are having a bad day can derail an entire vote. It gives you a little bit of a margin. And I'm sure Democrats, having watched this for the past year, are, even if they win control, are not looking forward to the prospect of that kind of narrow governance either. But that is the situation we are likely in at the moment, and will probably continue to be with regards to the House until you get somebody on the ticket on the ballot, either on the Democratic side or the Republican side, that is far more attractive and can make more of these races competitive again.
Alicia, we'll give you the last word, but the other scenario, obviously, is that Kamala Harris takes the White House. And if you are, again, assuming a Republican Senate, then the question for the House of Representatives is where the bargaining is going to take place in what is inevitably going to be a divided government. Because if you have a Republican Senate and a Democratic House, that means all the negotiations get bogged down in what kind of legislation can pass. And a more interesting scenario maybe is if you have a Republican Senate and a Republican House with a Democratic president, then Republicans in Congress have an opportunity to try to drive their agenda, pass bills that they think majority or 60% of the public will support, and put some pressure, put those bills on the Democratic president, put some pressure on her to sign them. That's a completely different dynamic, it seems to me, than when you have Congress split between the two parties, simply just trying to get the bills across the finish line.
Right. So I think there's going to be a lot of messaging bills that could pass, congressional review acts, which are resolutions that overturn rules. And I think you'll be seeing Republicans pass those left and right, but you'll probably end up vetoing them, just like Biden has done on those 3 or 4, or maybe there's a few more that have passed. The big stakes are going to be over the extension of the tax reforms, the 2017 tax reforms, and most of the individual tax cuts and then the state tax cut. expire in 2025, as do the Affordable Care Act expanded subsidies. And so I think there are going to be negotiations between the Harris administration and Republicans in Congress over whether to extend all of them. And I think there will probably be some give and take. The Republicans will probably go along and agree to extend the ACA subsidies in return for extending the Trump tax cuts. Now, the big question is, will they extend the lower top rate, that's 37% instead of the 39.6%? And will they also agree to, or will Harris also agree to extend the 20% small business deduction? Now, she has opposed both of those. She said she wants to raise taxes on the higher earners and increase the top rate. If you go back to the Obama administration, the expiration of the Bush tax cuts and top rate came up again, too. And if you recall, what they did is the tax cuts for the lower and middle income earners got extended, but not for the higher earners. And that's kind of what I see happening here. The Republicans and Democrats will agree to extend the tax cuts for people up to $400,000, but I think the taxes are going to go up for those earning more. And I think you also see an extension of the ACA subsidies.
Thank you, Alicia and Kim. Thank you all for listening. You can email us your own House forecasts to pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back next week with another edition of Potomac Watch.